Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to learn fragments, portals, and reps. What is that? There will be more tools in our React toolbox that help us solve more problems. In this video, we will learn which problem they solve, why we need them, and how we can use them. There are limitations we are facing with the JS code and how Fragment can help us overcome this limitation. We will learn how we can derive a cleaner DOM with the help of portals. And we will work with the refs and learn what the refs actually are and why we need them. In React, we always work with the JSX, but JSX has a certain limitation. Specifically, there's one limitation which cannot have more than one root JSX element. So let me show you what that means. We wrap with the div to become one root JSX element. When you return, we must have only one root. So if we remove, there's gonna be two different roots. It can't be alone. So that's why it's to become one root JSX element, we need to wrap it with a div or any other thing. As you can see here, we wrap it with a div to become one root JSX element. For example, we can have two root element like this, so it's become two root element. That's why it's a showing error. So for example, if we remove, so put inside like this, it does not show error. So because we wrap it with a div to become one root, so we are allow only one root JSX element. It does not have to be div. When you wrap it, you could be using any element here. So you could also be using a custom component here. So the main thing is that matter is you only give one value which you return. There's an alternative way of how to wrap with a custom component. So first I create a helper subfolder and I create a JSS component file. So I created like this another component. I with the props and the props to children. You remember? So children is what about we wrap inside opening a curly braces. We bring it here. So what I did, I created a subfolder, and then I create another file component, JS component, and I created like this, and pros with the children's everyday we wrap with this wrapper inside opening a curly braces. So and what we did, and this I wrap with the wrapper like this, and I imported wrapper from the helper and wrapper. So we go one step further and one step and I go to helper and wrap. There's another alternative way to wrap it with it to become one JSL roots element. So all the contents taken from here and I just return here. There are another ways we can wrap. These wrapper components are not components we need to build on our own. Instead, it comes with a React. This is just built in React. So we can use one of them. It's exactly the same. So make sure import the React from React. In the project, we have an error model. We have opportunity to use a fragment here. That's of course not the focus here. So instead here, we can now use a portal because this entire models actually shouldn't be rendered in the place where it's be rendered. Let me show you what I mean. If we inspect the real DOM that's be rendered and I trigger that model by somebody and value form, as you see, so as you can see, the model for backdrop and the card for the model overlay are be rendered here so next to that card hold the form. I actually want to have them here. So backdrop div right below the body as the direct child of the body. The same for the model overlay. Yeah, this is something we can achieve with the portal. And how we're gonna use this to achieve this goal? So in the public folder, index HTML file. So I add two div. So ID so is backdrop root and another one's overlay root, and save it. And error model components, I create two components. One is backdrop and another one is model overlays. I separate two components from here. I copy from here, is put it in here, and another one's cut from here. So for model overlay, I keep it here, so I don't need them anymore. So, and what I go to do here now, what I did here is I use the curly braces because we are still inside of the JS code. So I use the curly braces. I call the create portal method, so which is not defined that React. This another library come with a React, which is called React DOM. So you can give this name any name you want, and we call the create portal methods. This create portal methods take two arguments. The first one is your React node that should be rendered. So that's why I render the backdrop here. I forward it on confirms to get access browser on confirm. The second argument of the create portal is a pointer to that container in the React DOM where this element should be rendered in. So in this case, I want to render ID or backdoor root. So that's why I render backdoor root here. For this, I use DOM API document get element by ID to get access to backdoor root. So I use the same logic for model overlay here, and I pass the title a message and I point it on confirm to get access to pros to on confirm, and I overlay, I render overlay root and here. So as you can see, these two become as a direct child of the body, so next to the ID root. Ref is the short form of reference, but the name area is just refs. What do refs do? Ref is quite powerful. They allow us to get access to other DOM elements and work with them. What does that mean? Let's go back to app user component. We have our input and we manage what the user enters by keeping track of it. And we have our state, and with every keystroke we update our state. We update the value we get by the user and we store it in our state. We feed that state back into our input, and we use that state later on to reset the input and also send it to the place where we need the data. So that is perfectly fine, but updating the state with every keystroke when we only need it, when we submit the form, it sounds a bit redundant. That's the case where the refs could help us. With the refs, we can set a connection between a HTML element, which is be rendered in the end, and our other JavaScript code. So for that, first we need to create a ref here. We use useRef, which is another React code here, like this. And we call useRef here and our functional component. So like all React hooks, useRef is only usable inside of a functional component. So useRef take a default value you wanna initialize to, but we don't need this in here. So it returns a value which allows us to work with that ref later. Therefore, I name this name input ref and age input ref. So because I want to connect this ref with the inputs which allow us to enter a username and age, and I connected with the inputs by using special props ref and age as well, name and age. So this is the built-in props. So now our connection is established. First I rearrange this code, it will actually set the value stored and then name input ref to the native DOM element that is rendered based on this input. So what's the benefit? If we console log here and expect, go to console. So if we submit this, You see there's an object B output here. That object has a current property that is important. That red value which is B generated here so always is an object. So what B stored here is a real don't node which you could now manipulate and do all kinds of things with. And current refers to the value store. The value store is an input element, and every input element has a value property in JavaScript. If I log this value, if I enter max value here, you see it's a max B log here. So that means we can get access to the value store in the element. Now I replace a constant log with a helper constant. So I name that constant, enter name and enter user age. And now we can check enter name here and enter user age here and also enter user age here. And I also use enter name here and enter user age here to submit it to on add user. And we no longer reset these inputs by resetting the state here because we are not using the state to get the values anymore. So that's why we don't need this one and these two and also this one as well. We don't need it. And this one as well. If I enter max 31, you see we still can add that user. But during the process, we lost our resetting logic. So what I'm going to do now, and I use name input ref dot current dot value and age input ref dot current value, set it empty string, save it. If we now check it again, it's now clear.